people are your greatest asset. But in order for for them to be your greatest asset, you've got to learn to trust them and create that environment of trust between you and your team. Hi everyone, Rob Crop and Dan Stones here from Pravar Group, and welcome back to another episode of the Trade Den. How are you, Dan? Good to have you back.
Very good to be back. Hi, everyone. Yeah, great to be back, actually. Looking forward to a good discussion today about a big topic. So trust is one of these things that's not a nice to have. It's something that absolutely has to exist in any, I think, collective or team environment. It's the differences between those businesses that thrive and those that just sort of struggle on and survive and splutter and they're never quite right. So the businesses that grow are the ones where the owners absolutely learned and I think consistently works on building genuine trust within the team. Without it, it's not a blind trust. It's not just hope, but it's real earned, battle-tested trust that you can rely on. So I think that's a big part of it, and looking forward to jumping in today.
Yeah, what I'm looking forward to the most is this is almost a bit of a continuation from the episode that we did recently on episode 89. We got a little bit of feedback on that one where some of our listeners really love the conversation about relinquishing control and letting go and that ability to, well, how do I relinquish control whilst maintaining control? And today what we're going to do is take that one step further and talk a bit about, well, trust is the essential ingredient in that to be able to relinquish control without blindly just letting go and abdicating your responsibility. So that's why today's conversation is so important. So if you haven't done so already, please make sure you do go check out episode 89 in conjunction with today's episode as well.
Yeah, good point. I think the other thing is that when we do talk about trust, we're not talking about this is the ABC of trust. Trust comes as a result of a number of other things. So today's episode, I think, is really good that we get across that it's practical to the point of, well, how do I end up at this place of trust? Not just, well, what's the ABC of doing trust? You don't actually do trust. And it's a hard thing, right? It's a difficult tightrope to walk. There's so many factors to it.
Yeah, there is. And I think from my own experience running a business, it's one of those things where when it's just you know that you do the job, you get it done right, and you do it, and everything falls on you. But as you start to grow a team, the stakes are high. The stakes can become high in business, especially in the early phases of business. You're already stretched so thin yourself. There's a lot of things on the line, like money's tight, you're growing a business, there's not a lot of time as there is, and you just can't afford mistakes. You can't afford for something to stuff up. You can't afford for something to go wrong. And you know deep down inside of you've got to relinquish control. You've got to hand over responsibilities, like you know that. But it's hard. It's really hard. And that's why today's topic is so important.
Yeah, I think for me, the proof's in the pudding, though, as you go through this. Those stakes never change as a business owner. That it's always your baby to an extent. It becomes your child or whatever it is. But even as a grown-up child, it's still something that those stakes are always high, but you don't learn that over time. You think that trust's going to be a problem with that, but trust is what allows it to thrive in the future. So I think that's a really big one. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to let go of that sort of why it's hard to trust. I think that's just inherent part of what goes on in business. You can learn to mitigate some of the risks, but it's not necessarily going to be the fact that, well, I'm trusting people and that just disappears. It's always going to be there.
Definitely, and I see what you're saying there, because as you grow a business, there are a couple of different layers of leverage. Like the first layer is your leverage through your ground crew. The next layer is your office crew. The next layer is your operational team, which is your project manager and an estimator. And then if your business gets big enough, you leverage through a general manager or a business manager. So the bigger you've got to go through those four different layers of leverage, and you've got to turn the corner in the beginning in your journey in business to start learning to trust a ground crew to begin with, and then you can relinquish control further. But it's you've always got to develop that skill and that ability to let go, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's good that we recognise that one, but unfortunately that's just one of those ones you learn and grow through, I think, more than anything else. The two I really want to focus in on, though, the first one is you struggle with trust, and this is something we can work on and we will work on today, but the first one is that you've been burned before. There's some part of your history that says you can't trust. That's where the issues start to arise.
Yeah, this is one of those things where this is really just fear, all wrapped up in that statement. Like you're scared because something's happened in the past, and you run the risk of it happening again in the future. And a few things that come to mind around this for me is, you like there's been a mistake on a job. Someone stuffed something up. They made a mistake that cost you money, or a quote went out the door either via your estimator or just some support via admin where it was completely wrong, or a customer complained because one of the guys, one of your ground crew just made a mistake, and that created reputational damage. So as you go through business, when you start leveraging through other people and almost handing that responsibility, it's one of the risks you have. There's going to be mistakes, and other people are going to do it differently to you, and they might make mistakes. But if you've been burnt before, it might hinder that ability to trust people in the future because you've once bitten, twice shy kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that idea then is like, well, the past equals the future. If they stuffed it up once, they'll always stuff it up, or a quote went out wrong. I can't let that ever happen again. There's no guarantee that it will happen that way again. That's why we say it's okay to get better. But the past doesn't have to mean that it's going to be the same forever. We can get better, and we do that. If we thought that way, then the first time we all tried to walk, we fell over. We'd never do it again. It'd be like, well, I can't walk. I'll just crawl as best as I can. It's a little bit the same sort of attitude when people go about the burn before thing.
When business owners do get burnt in the past, or that they're afraid of something that might happen, a repeat of what's happened in the past, what do you think some of the business owners do going forward?
Yeah, I think like whenever fear strikes, we tighten up, and I think that's what happens with the business owners. Their grip tightens on everything. It's like, well, I've got to be across this more. I've got to inject myself more, like you said at the top. There's that idea. Well, now I've got to be across that as well because I can't trust anyone else to do it. So they put more process in, they put more checkpoints in, they put more administration in, and to the only end is that the only reason I'm putting that in becomes over time that I can't trust you. It's not really serving any purpose, especially if people have moved beyond it, or they have learned the lesson, or the business has inherently improved.
So it's really micromanagement. That's where micromanagement comes into play. And then you create all these barriers and tighten the grip, as you say.
Yeah, and then you become the bottleneck. And anyone you bring in to manage a process or do something like that to take your place in that spot, they just become someone who's just sitting there as a gatekeeper almost, and that's all they're doing. So there's no real benefit or addition to the business other than that sort of peace of mind that comes from micromanagement, and it just repeats and gets tighter and tighter over time.
And no wonder so many business owners working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, because they're somewhat doing their own job, but then other people's job, because they're double checking, triple checking, or holding on to the things that they know deep down that they shouldn't be doing. But really, that's a psychological thing where they're struggling to relinquish control of completely LVTs, or low value tasks we talk about in coaching, that they're holding on to those things so tight because somewhere in the past someone ballsed up somewhere, and they're equating the past is going to equal the future.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do have this, just a really quick way that comes to mind is go and ask the person that's now in charge of it, if you haven't, say, why do we do that? And if they say because we've always done it that way and there's no other reason, you can almost guarantee that you're stuck on something that happened in the past and hoping that it doesn't happen again because of it. Really important one. I think the other thing, Rob, that comes, not just that they hold on tight, is it reinforces or doubles down on the second reason. So this one creates the second reason, which makes it even harder to trust. And that's that idea now, well, I'm the best at everything, and that's just another reason why. This idea of I am the best, or I need to be the best at everything, is a real barrier to trust, I think.
It is. It's a classic mindset of that business owner who's recognised that they create leverage through good people and good systems. So there are two good ways that we can create leverage. We leverage other people, we leverage good systems. The other third leverage is money. But in this instance, we're talking about people and systems. And they're starting to make that transition from being a good tradie to starting to knock on the door of being a good business owner. And that mindset is what holds them back. No one's as good as me. It saves me time and energy and money if I do it myself. And they hold on so tight, and they think that they're the best at it, but really, if they're honest with themselves, they suck at it. So using an example around that is the bookkeeping, the reconciling of accounts, the creation of invoicing, the They think, well, I've got to be the only one that can pull invoices together because no one else can do it like me, and others will make mistakes kind of thing. But if they're really honest with themselves, there are people out there way better than them, and with the right systems and processes around them, they probably do a better job more consistently for sure.
Yeah, we hear this. It never ceases to amaze me how often we hear this when people go, when you told me that, I thought there's no way this will work. That person I brought in, almost any role that the owner was doing, almost any role within time, it always comes back, they're so much better at it than me. And even if the skill set's not the same, over time they've got more capacity to do it because they're not trying to run a business and do the task at the same time. So they've got more capacity to do the job better. But sometimes over time, your skills erode. We don't like to tell ourselves about that, but over time, guaranteed, just because you did the job and you've been in business for 6, 7, 8 years, don't think that the people coming through aren't better trained, that don't know what's happening, aren't on top of it. They've been trained that way. They've got time to do that, and their ability to do the job better is there for the taking. You've just got to be willing to relinquish it and let them step into that breach.
This is why, but this is where this mindset comes from, is because most business owners aren't thinking, well, if I put that person on and trust them, look at the opportunities it's going to unlock. Most people are thinking, because they're in that phase where time is scarce and money is skint, they're thinking, well, how do I hold on tighter to save me more money because it's so scarce and skint as it is? And so this thing around tightening the grip is bred from someone's either made a mistake in the past, or you're holding on so tight because you can't afford something to go wrong. Why do people hold on to invoicing? They can't afford for invoices to be wrong. Why do they hold on to quoting? Because they can't afford for quotes to have mistakes in there. Why do they hold on to low value tasks? Because they don't think that they can afford to pay an admin person to be able to do those things. And so this mindset is bred from scarcity and tightening the grip, and that holding on tight because they can't afford. Money's scarce and time is scarce as it is. And so what happens is you tie yourself up in a knot, but there's got to be a point in time where you have that honest conversation with yourself to be able to go, I can't keep going this way. I've got to relinquish control. I've got to realize that there are better people out there than me, and that the only way to work through this is to relinquish control and put steps in place to develop that trust in that person that they are going to do a good job. You've got to be open and willing to trust them, which is an essential ingredient to creating that point of leverage in your world.
Well, let's look at that. I think the only thing I'll do before we jump out, so the first one was going to hold you in a bottleneck, which is for the business and everyone else, you become the bottleneck. The second one that you just described really well there is that you trap yourself. Like you said, you tie yourself in knots. So you're either going to be a bottleneck for everyone else, or you're actually going to lock yourself into a position you don't want to be in. Or if you find yourself in it over time, you want to get it out of it, you can't, because you're the only one that can. So really important that we cover that off. All right, let's look at what trust really looks like then. So trust in business isn't, like we said at the top, about closing your eyes and hoping for the best. When we say let go, you've used the word leverage. We've said relinquishing control. It's not about just letting go for the sake of just saying, over to you, here's the keys, all the best. It's about building a system and a way of doing this that's very consciously done, and it's a way of doing things that you're on top of it and you're attached to it and you're connected to it without just stepping away completely. That's got to be the first thing.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is you earn trust through developing someone's capability. So you earn trust. Like when you bring someone on into the team, it's like a professional relationship, like a personal relationship. You don't just all of a sudden have 100% trust in a life partner kind of thing. It's got to be earned over a period of time. And the way that you earn trust by developing capability in that team member, first and foremost, is getting them on board and training and developing that person that you know you've set them up for success, and you know that you've invested the time and the energy and money in them from the onset to be able to ensure you're developing them that they can actually succeed in their role. That's the first part in earning trust.
I think you're right. And the ability to have people trained properly, have capability, it's very hard to trust someone if you haven't instilled that. If they don't know what it is that you're looking for, they can't act in a way, or it's going to take way longer to act in a way that you can trust me to do what you want me to do because I've never been taught or told what it is.
Yeah, people aren't mind readers. They don't know what's expected of them if you haven't set those expectations or set the standards or train them on how you want certain things done. And the reality is, as owners of businesses, we don't have a right to be shitty at our team if mistakes happened or problems occur or whatever it is, if we haven't played the part in setting our team members up for success. So trust almost falls back on us more than anything as owners, because if we haven't set them up to succeed and helped develop the skill and the capability, whether it's an admin person or a bookkeeper or someone in your ground crew, if we haven't set them up to succeed, we play a huge part in not enabling that trust between us and our team member.
Yeah, like we said, trust is the outcome of a whole lot of stuff. That stuff is training. It's about setting standards. I think the third one for me is letting people practice. It's practice makes perfect. I don't like that saying. I like to say practice makes progress. So but having the ability or the space for someone to go and try and improve and develop is really important. The trust element that locks it in for me then is doing it with your support. As a business owner, the support you give to someone who is practicing and making it safe to practice and not make catastrophic dumb mistakes, but to stumble as they go. That's always going to be part of the process, but that's still part of building capability.
Yeah, it's kind of when you bring a leading hand in, for example, it's like, hey, mate, here's a job. This is the job that I'm going to be able to give you, and go away and have a crack. And here's the job, here's the scope, here's what's included, here's what's excluded, here's what you can and can't make decisions around. Now, let's have a go at it, and let's touch base on Wednesday around how you're going, kind of thing. So what you're doing is creating that environment where they can go and earn your trust to some degree. It's a two-way thing, but they can go and earn it. Now, if a mistake happens, then sure, that's going to happen. It's part and parcel of having a team. They're not going to do it your way. They're going to do it their way, and there are going to be mistakes along the way. But you're right, by giving them the opportunity to do it and prove themselves and do it their way with your support goes a long way in developing that trust together in a team environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the next thing, and you talk about this a lot, which is the idea that as the trust grows, the responsibility grows, and it expands and moves. It's not a finite thing like, yep, you've got all of it. It happens over time, and it gradually shifts and changes over time.
Yeah, it does. When someone demonstrates that they've got the ability to do things, they've got the capability to be able to do what they're responsible for in their role, and as they grow and develop in that role, the corridor opens. We give them more responsibility. The trust grows even further. We relinquish more control. As you say, we just don't blindly have this complete open scope of what they're going to be responsible for from day one. We open it up and we give them more responsibility as the trust grows. Now, as mistakes happen and we've got to manage them, we might tighten in a little bit more, but we just continue to develop that trust between you and your team. And over time, you just keep handing over more and more and more responsibility. And that's what makes a great leader, is your ability to develop trust, hand over more, and all of a sudden you're handing off LVTs or low value tasks into your team and let them flourish in their role. But it all comes from having strong trust that they know that you've got their back and they've got the ability to do the job that they're actually being employed to do.
Yeah, I think that's good. Now, the next thing is, once you get to that point of trust, the only way to go is, well, I trust you now until I don't. And that's a really terrible way to run your team. It's almost like everything's on a knife edge the whole time. The idea is that you talked about trust being earned initially through capability. The second piece of this is maintaining trust through your communication.
Trust is one of those things where you've got to, as you say, you've got to continue to build on it and maintain it as you go. And so, as from an owner's point of view, that communication can come in two ways: is really clear delegation, and that's your ability to the big three: the what, the why, and the when. We did a previous episode around that, around the power of delegation. So really clear, strong delegation to them, so they're abundantly clear of exactly what's being delegated to them, And then it's the ability to close the feedback loop around that and hold them accountable to jobs that are getting done. So if you can top and tail from that end, from strong delegation and closing the feedback loop and strong accountability, that's what helps you build and develop and maintain that strong trust between you and your team that just continues to grow over time as they flourish in their role.
Yeah, and I think where people trip up for me, that I learned this a long time ago, the difference between a check-up and a check-in. So being able to have a regular check-in is very different to I'm checking up on you. That's the surveillance piece that you talked about. Checking in is, hey, how are you going with that? Anything we need to do? That sort of thing's very different to you're doing that wrong. Let me see what you've done there. And it's almost that peek over the shoulder versus facing up to someone front on and just having that conversation about where they're at and any support that they need, which reinforces that idea of being connected to the person, which is what's required for trust.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's look at the payoffs. And this might seem obvious, but I think it's worth spending some time on this because when you get this right, the payoffs are pretty stark and they're obvious in a way, but unless you remind yourself of why you're doing this, it's harder to do because it's one of those things until it becomes a problem, you don't tend to spend time on it. So let's focus on the outcomes. First one being, for me, the most obvious one is you make more money, right?
Yeah, you make more money because the business grows. You've got the ability to drive your top line by being more sales. And the reason why you've got time for sales is because you've relinquished control of low value tasks. You've delegated being on the tools to your team, and you've got the time and the energy and the focus to drive revenue. And then as you then start adding more leverage into your plate, you can keep handing off and delegating off low value tasks into your world. But the business is gonna naturally make more money as you trust a team around you and leverage their resources to be able to keep driving the top line and driving the bottom line along the way. So it sounds so simple and so well, of course, but naturally you're going to make more money because you're relinquishing control and you get to focus on the things that matter, which is driving your top line and your bottom line and making the business better.
Yeah, because you've unlocked capacity, so you've got more capacity to do more work and you've improved capability, which means you can do it more efficiently. And those bottlenecks start to disappear, which is great. What about the next one? You get more time.
Well, the symptom of someone who's got no time is because they're literally holding on tight. They're micromanaging every single detail. So if you're there working nights and weekends and you're working 50, 60, 70, 80 up plus hours a week, you don't have a time problem. You've got a prioritization and a micromanagement problem. You're doing stuff that you shouldn't be, and you're holding on tight to things that you shouldn't be because you've either been burnt in the past or you think you're the only person who's good at doing it. And so trust unlocks that, because when you've got trust, you start to leverage through good people and good systems, and you hand over those things to those people around you, and all of a sudden the low value tasks get done by someone else. And instead of you doing admin and quoting and invoicing and stuff at night on weekends, you get the important things done during the day. So you get your life back. You get nights, weekends with family. You get to go away on holidays. You get real freedom from your business because you're not being the bottleneck and holding on so tight within your organization.
Yeah, which is a huge one, right? And now the third one, and this is a real obvious statement I'm going to make, but we'll talk through it, is that your team grows. Your team develops and you get a better team.
It's good for them. It's great for them because they have the ability to, when you develop trust in your team, you're sending the message to hey Dan, I trust you. I believe that you're going to do a good job. And that's great for them because they feel like they've got the ability to make decisions and call the shots and be responsible for what they're actually getting paid to do within the business and within their role. And so they flourish, they make more decisions, they have the ability to thrive in their position. So the happiness goes up, culture improves, decision-making improves, which lends it back self to making more money again and you getting more time. It's a win for you, but it's a huge win for the team, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think that's the payoff at all. You ask anyone that loves their job, you can guarantee that there's a level of trust that's been shared between them and whoever is managing them, or the owner, or whoever it is. That trust is absolutely there. Without it, guarantee the people that really struggle, hate my job, it's probably because they're being micromanaged. There's no trust at the end of the day, and that's a big problem. The other one for me is so many business owners, I just wish people would take more ownership. And what they're missing is the trick is, well, without trust, there's no ownership to take. There's no responsibility there. There's no sort of sense of this is on me too, and I'm being trusted to do this job. Trust is the prerequisite for taking ownership in a lot of ways. So really important that we get that right. And I think you're right. The other one is the problem-solving skills. You'll never unleash any of this that you're looking for out of these three things we've talked about: the freedom, the money, or just the fact that you've got a really capable team. You'll never do that. You'll never get there unless people start to be able to make decisions and think critically and have problem-solving skills. That doesn't come unless you can trust them with a challenge in the first place. If you're looking to shield them from that, or shield the business or yourself from that, it's just going to be a long road, and that's why you end up stuck all the time.
This is why this conversation is so important, because there's a lot of talk in the business world around structure and roles and responsibilities and recruitment and culture and retention, but not a lot of people talk about trust. And trust is that secret ingredient in the middle of all of those things, where it's like, hey mate, not that you say it, but it's a message you're sending to your team, which is, hey mate, I believe in you, and I believe you're going to get that job done to the best of your capability. And you wouldn't say it, but it's a message of, I trust you. And when you've got that relationship, that two-way relationship between you and your team, that's when the magic happens within the business, because you trust your leading hand, you trust your tradesmen, you're developing that trust within your apprentices that they're growing their capability. You trust your bookkeeper that they're doing a great job. You trust your admin person that they're looking after the schedule and helping with the ordering of materials and organising the stuff with getting the trucks booked in for services and all those types of things. Like you grow and they grow, but it's the ingredients, it's the invisible ingredient in the middle of all of this stuff which enables everyone to flourish, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the space that people step up into. When trust is there, it's a space for people to step up into. That's the way I think of it. And I think with your ground crew and the people that you're going to be giving trust to, they will step up and into that, but it's got to be created in the first place. And then you've got to hold that space for them to do well in it. So really important. Ready for a challenge?
Let's do it.
All right. So this week, pick one area where you're currently the bottleneck. Let's go with bottleneck, but it could be the other way as well. But any area, just pick one area though. One thing that you always do yourself because no one else can do it right, whatever it is, you'll know what it is. And then this week, what we want you to do is sit down and first document that process. Write it out how you'd like it done, exactly how it should be done, how you want to see it done, what success looks like from that perspective. Get that documented somewhere so you're at least clear on it to start with. Then what you're going to do, step 2, is train someone. Walk them through that. The person that you want to make responsible, the person that you want to develop trust with, create and have them earn that trust, walk them through it. Let them watch, let them try, and sort of have the conversation around what questions they've got. Are they clear on it? All those sort of things. And then 3, get out of the way and let them do it. Let them do it. Step back and let them handle it based on the instructions and support you've given them, and the support they know is there for them, with you being available for questions. You're not just going to push them off a cliff and say, hey, fly. You're going to be there to catch them. You're going to be there to instruct them, but let them do it and just see what happens from there. That's all it is. Let's see what happens. What's possible when you do it that way. Now, are they going to do it exactly like you would? Probably not. But you're going to have to trust them that they will still get it done. Are they going to make mistakes? Possibly. But you're going to have to trust them that they know enough about their job and their role that they're not going to have a catastrophic failure. And will they get better each time they do this? 100%. That's how we get there, right? Practice makes progress. But you have to trust them that they're going to get better each time. And you're doing your part too in this, right? This is you maintaining it through communication. You stay connected. And if you could just do those 3 steps and really think it through and watch it and just be aware of what's happening through the process, you will see that you're building trust with that person, but you'll see the opportunity and the crack will start to open for you to say, hey, this idea about how I can go about building trust and everything that comes with it, I can now really get into this and I can really do something that's going to make a difference in this space.
What a great challenge. And I think it's the starting point for it all. And it's your ability as a leader to be able to continue to peel things off your plate and relinquish that control and trust your team that they're going to do a great job. Now, remember, as we spoke about in a prior episode, it's not about abdicating your responsibility. You don't just hand it over and let it go forever. You still got to manage them and hold them accountable. But that ingredient in the middle is trust. So never forget that. Work on it. Develop it. Trusting people. People are your greatest asset. But in order for them to be your greatest asset, you've got to learn to trust them and create that environment of trust between you and your team. If you're ready to build a business that doesn't depend entirely on you, book a free discovery call at strategysession.com.au, because the difference between a job and a business is simple. A business works when you're not there, and that only happens when you learn to trust your team. What a great episode today, Dan. There's that little thing about trust, the invisible ingredient that makes all this work. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening today and have taken away from it. Don't forget to execute that challenge. Let's get rubber meeting the road, and looking forward to coming back to you next week on another episode of The Trade Den. Until then, take care.
See you soon.